Hello everyone. This is Nick Penif again. I am the host of the Networking on Steroid shows, and we're with our next episode. I was on vacation last week, which of course you should do whenever your wife tells you. But we're back to work, so we can relax from the vacations and all the stuff that people make us to do. So today we're gonna talk about something very important, because if you've heard the quote, "You make the profit when you buy, not when you sell." This applies in trading and it applies in business. The lower you buy, the more money you're gonna make. And today I have three special guests, which are gonna talk about the power of sourcing. Because if you know where to source, you're gonna do very well in your business. So the title of the episode is "Sourcing Wizards Sharing Baddest Tips for E-commerce Peeps." And our guests today are Oliver Almos Lechner, the co-founder of Wanda, Jim Kennemer, founder of Cosmos Sourcing, and Adam Chuntz, co-founder of Blanca. They're gonna talk about how to source product from Vietnam and future-proof your business. This is what Jim is gonna cover. Then Oli is gonna talk about sourcing from Europe. Avoid those mistakes to keep your blood pressure low. And last but not the least, Adam is gonna talk about great products aren't enough. Tips how to help you sell more. But before we do that, I'm gonna play a short video about one of my software Scale, because that's how we connect with people. Just understand what we're doing, how we get in touch with these great speakers, and how you can use our tool to get in touch with people, which can help you to grow your business, just make partnerships, or just network with people with the same mindset and goal. So check out what we're doing at Scale here. Just give me a sec.
Meet Scale, the tool that streamlines proactive referrals and facilitates meaningful introductions. With Scale, you can easily exchange intros to expand your network and boost your business growth. Step 1. Sign up for free. You can conveniently sign up for Scale.com using your Gmail account. Step 2. Create your page. To create your Scale page, choose a unique handle, like this, https://app.scale.com, Nick Pehnev. Add your name, company, position, and a brief introduction. Step 3. Upload your contacts. You can easily upload your contacts, including partners, clients, or missed opportunities, and share their names, companies, positions, and also their LinkedIn profiles. Step 4. Request introductions. With at least 10 contacts, you're ready for Scale matchmaking, connecting you with users who share your ideal customer profile, ICP, for introduction swaps and referrals. Sign up today and try Scale for free.
Okay, thanks, amigo. So one thing that we don't have in the video is that we just launched the Scale Navigator. So now you can browse the network of like 1,000 companies in the e-commerce space so far, and you can look for your ideal partner or client ICP. But let's stop talking about Scale, because it's good, but we're going to talk about sourcing. So let me actually bring my guests to the stage so they can introduce each other, and we can start talking about the sourcing wizard stuff that they do. So here is Oli. Oli is the founder of Wanda. Here is Jim, and here is Adam. So guys, briefly introduce yourself, and then we can get started with the topics today. First, let's start with Jim, because he's gonna help you source from the east, and then we're gonna go as the sun rotates. Europe, and then the USA.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jim Kennemer. I'm the founder and managing director of Cosmos Sourcing. Cosmos Sourcing is a general full-service sourcing company with teams based in both China and Vietnam. We've been established for over 10 years now, so we're arguably one of the most experienced sourcing companies with Vietnam. And that's it.
Okay, thanks, cool. Jim. So, Oli, tell us what you guys are doing.
Yes, hi.
Yourself and what you guys do.
Perfect. Hi, I'm Oli. I'm one of the co-founders of Wanda. We started actually 2 years ago to build a kind of a Alibaba for Europe. I will tell you during my keynote how that went and what we learned. Originally from Austria and currently building Wanda in Berlin. So if anyone is happens to be in Berlin, stop by in our office. It's very central. Happy to welcome you guys here.
Thank you, Ole. And now, Adam, you're the last. Tell us briefly about you and what you guys do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Chuntz. I'm one of the co-founders and the CMO of a company called Blanca. Blanca is a tech platform that allows anyone to create a branded product line in just a few minutes. We focus on really high quality beauty products from North America. We handle everything. We do it all without any minimums. So think private labeling meets drop shipping, but really high quality beauty products. Looking forward to the chat.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So now let's start first with Jim, because no, you guys are, I mean, anybody who is in e-commerce, you guys are probably used to sourcing from Asia. But Asia, you're probably thinking of China. So Jim is gonna tell about markets that you've probably heard of, but probably haven't explored so far. So, Jim, tell us more about your topic and what e-commerce sellers are not doing yet.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, probably in the last several years, China has kind of had some ups and downs with the various issues, everything from tariffs to their reaction to COVID, etc. And so I think in the last few years, there's been a pretty huge shift from buyers to find alternative markets to source from. And just from my experience personally, I'm obviously going to advocate Vietnam since we have a team there, but I honestly do believe that Vietnam is the best alternative to China, particularly in many categories. So I mean, with Vietnam, it is, I mean, it's close to China, so it's a good alternative in that you can actually get a lot of products or components for products from China and ship to Vietnam and do your final assembly in Vietnam, but they also produce a lot of goods. So Vietnam is a little bit smaller than China, which I think people have to keep in mind. Vietnam has a population of 100 million versus 1.3 billion for China. As a result, it does have limited factory capacity, but it does actually have several industries that it does really specialize in and really does excel above China. So I think one of the biggest industries is probably the cut and sew textile industries that Vietnam has. So we do a lot of bags, clothing, upholstery, pretty much anything made of fabric in Vietnam. I think Vietnam probably has the most competitive prices, both, and it excels at pretty much every level from cheap bottom all the way to top end products. Further, Vietnam also has a huge furniture industry, particularly in wooden goods. It has access to some good tropical hardwoods, and as such, it actually is very price competitive with pretty much anywhere in the world. And that ranges from anything from high-end acacia and teak wood to bamboo goods to flat pack furniture made of MDF and plywood. So yeah, I mean, just in terms of, I mean, the topic is future proofing. So I think when people are looking at long term, looking at their supply chain long term, they're looking at basically resiliency in their supply chain so that it can handle any economic or political happen any events. And so, I mean, just in terms of that, I think having a robust supply chain with multiple countries that you have alternative sources for is probably the best way to actually future proof your supply chain. And so, I mean, a lot of our clients, probably over half our clients for Vietnam, honestly, already have an established business and already source from China. And as such, they, they've usually been happy or they kind of see rising prices. So they kind of look at the future and see what could happen. I don't want to get too political with things, but I mean, there's obviously things with Taiwan, there's things with tariffs, etc. There's also internal situations regarding their kind of debt crisis, their burgeoning debt crisis that could impact financing for factories, and which restricts their expansions in China. Um, so any of those things could happen to their supply chain that results in them possibly having higher prices or even losing capacity completely. We saw this with COVID when there was strict lockdowns. They straight up, many factories couldn't actually export from China. So they obviously kind of started looking for alternatives, and Vietnam, in my opinion, is the biggest alternative. It has a relatively stable geopolitical climate. It's very friendly in terms of having foreigners come in and buy products and actually invest in the country. One good thing about Vietnam's government is they're very proactive about getting free trade agreements with other countries. So right now they have free trade agreements in place with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, all of ASEAN as part of all of Southeast Asia as part of ASEAN, which is basically EU for Southeast Asia. And they just recently signed a massive free trade agreement with the European Union, which is pretty huge if you're a European seller. Further, if you're an American buyer, it's a preferred trade partner. We have a bilateral trade agreement, but it's not full trade. But there is no tariffs from buying from Vietnam. And since the government is very interested in boosting their manufacturing sector, they're very proactive about making sure they stay in good standing with these countries. long term, and they're very good about making sure that foreign companies can actually invest directly into manufacturing. So, as part of the free trade agreement, so there's a free trade agreement in place with Vietnam. You can actually own your manufacturing capacity. So, as a result, there are lots of factories in Vietnam that are foreign owned. So I mean, just factories we work with a lot of Japanese owned factories, Korean owned factories, Danish owned factories, European owned factories in general. So you actually get managers and um that are from those respective countries, but actually can take advantage of cheaper labor cost in Vietnam, and you get a really good mix. Like Japanese, we do a lot of precision metal parts from a Japanese owned factory, so you get the Japanese engineering, the Japanese mindset of quality, and then they use Vietnamese labor, so it's both high quality and very price competitive. For instance, those categories. Another, we work with Danish for outerwear, Danish company for outerwear. So it's very, very high end, high quality products, and then you still get the, like I said, the cheap labor in Vietnam. And so I mean, just long term, you've got to really think about your supply chain in a long term capacity of about 5 to 10 years. Because when you actually buy, it's a partnership. You know, it's almost like a marriage. It's like dating. So you got to actually commit to a manufacturer you're comfortable with, and you're going to be comfortable with long term. And I mean, there's definitely several great factories in Vietnam that I think, and very several buyers that have bought from Vietnam have been happy with having a long term relationship with. Oh, give me a second. So I mean, ultimately, it's just really about looking at the global manufacturing scale at large and figuring out where you want to be long term and where is going to be the best alternative. And so, I mean, it's just from our experience, we've definitely helped with lots of clients to actually move from Vietnam, find alternatives from Vietnam. We worked with brand new buyers and sellers, both in the FBA scale, e-commerce, established brick and mortar stores, and whatnot to find manufacturers in Vietnam and make sure that it's ultimately a manufacturer that they're happy with. Um, that's more or less everything. Oh, great. And yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, if you're interested, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Just one question. I mean,
Yeah.
so should sellers and companies use like Vietnam as like a backup plan, or they should look as Vietnam as like a main sourcing market?
I think for the most part, I mean, most of our clients, the overwhelming majority, view Vietnam as a primary sourcing destination. We do work with a handful. I would say less than 20% of our clients kind of just want to have a backup plan in case something goes wrong with their Chinese supplier or suppliers elsewhere. But 80 plus percent of our clients view Vietnam as a primary sourcing destination, and that's their first choice sourcing destination for their products. You do have
Okay.
to be a little bit selective in that regard. I kind of mentioned briefly that there are categories that Vietnam excels in, but it's not like China. There's not a factory that makes everything in Vietnam, so you have to be more selective in that regard. So I mean, textiles, cut and sew, clothing, shoes, are Vietnam really excels in. But also beyond that, wooden goods of any kind. We do a lot of furniture projects. Anytime we get a request for furniture, we kind of steer them towards Vietnam because I mean they make everything from upholstered furniture, steel metal furniture, case goods, hotel furniture. Do a lot of that there, and then Vietnam does still do a lot of other stuff. Like we're doing a lot of paper packaging in Vietnam. We'll do injection molding for both silicone and plastic and rubber goods. We still do like metal tubing. We're doing a lot of industrial shelving, metal industrial shelving, for instance, for some reason.
Okay,
Um,
Jim. And
yeah.
and one question: is there like a product or a category which is unique for Vietnam that nobody can beat them in regards to quality and relative pricing or whatever?
Yeah, I would say probably the number one category that they really excel in is probably wooden goods.
Okay.
They have access to cheap tropical hardwood, so it's really high end quality wood. And then it's relatively good price. I mean, tropical hardwood is going to be a lot denser, a lot thicker. So it's acacia is the main one, but there's several other good woods.
Yeah, but by the way, no, the map behind me is a gift from a partner, and
Oh,
the
nice.
company is called Enjoy the Wood, but I think it's from Ukraine, which actually leads me to where we're going next. So thank Jim, but now
Mhm.
we're gonna like the sun is moving, it rises in the east and it goes to the west. So now
Yeah.
it's going over Europe, and Oli is gonna tell you guys more about what they're doing because there's very few companies which specialize in like sourcing just from Europe or close to Europe. And as a matter of fact, I was running an e-commerce business for like 10 years, and I was sourcing only from Europe just to keep my stock closer. I never sourced from China, I never sourced from Vietnam. But of course, it has its specifics. So all in all, I'm gonna share your presentation, and we can again, you can actually get started and tell us what people should know about sourcing from Europe.
Perfect. Hi, everyone again. Everyone can see my slides, right? So it should actually work. I quickly just bring you or tell you a little bit the background story, why we are doing what we're doing, or how I actually got in the contact with the whole sourcing industry. And that brings me back to the year 2012, when my dad, he's an optician in Austria, typical mom and pop store. He decided to launch his own eyewear brand. And for us, it was super important, since we are from Austria, that the supply chains are super resistant and very close to where actually the whole idea was born. So it has to also pay in a little bit to the storyline, but also obviously to the resilience of our supply chain. So what we did was, back then we drove down to Italy because my dad knew a couple of regions in Italy where they were quite famous for producing eyewear, until we found a manufacturer for our small eyewear brand, which is a very high quality, handmade, made in Italy, optical frames and sunglasses brand, which is still existing and still flourishing as we speak. But what has bothered me a bit was, back then, that was okay for me that this is just the way B2B business is conducted in Europe. But I've been asking myself, why is there an Alibaba? Why is it so easy, so digital if you want to source from China? While in Europe, we're still stuck in old school B2B directories. And that's why actually my co-founder Martin and I really got into the whole topic about, let's build something that's enabling brands, like hopefully yourself when you're in the audience right now, to source and actually scale up your product line with made in Europe products. And that's actually how Wanda started. So we started as a pure marketplace, if you want to call it like that, where we connected B2B buyers and brands, especially in the e-commerce space, with, I would call them premium manufacturers and suppliers in Europe. We've been shifting a bit recently because what we saw is that supply chains are super complex. As we heard also before, supply chains consist not only of a finished product, but has also certain components that make a full product, a full SKU. So we have been shifting not only to build a marketplace for brands, but as we speak, we are also building a supply chain solution where those brands can manage their existing components, source new suppliers, new components for their product lines, all centrally on Wanda. So basically coming from a pure idea of building an Alibaba for Europe, tapping into now a more holistic solution where supply chain resilience is actually our top keyword that we're working on. However, today the topic is all about sourcing from Europe, and my topic was avoid the mistakes when you want to source from Europe. But before that, I want to just tap in, and some things are very obvious, but just tap in why you should actually source from European suppliers. And I think one fact that's not neglectable is that we have super high quality standards in Europe, especially consumer goods. There's such a high standard of consumer protection that you can actually say already almost for certain that when you work with a registered European manufacturer or supplier, they undergo a lot of bureaucratic hassle, but this hassle leads to really high quality, or let's say a baseline of quality, of high quality standards. Also, what's I think a big advantage is, especially coming from a Western perspective, that no matter if you communicate with a Portuguese manufacturer, a Bulgarian manufacturer, Austrian manufacturer, the communication is always quite clear because we have a shared set of, I would say, economic way of doing business. So the communication is quite clear and always straightforward. I do think that the location, no matter if you're a European brand or European buyer or from other parts of the world, Europe has the biggest ports where a lot of trade is happening. So the supply chain location of having your factories located in Europe is quite, I would say, a sensible choice to do. We do have, as Europe is very fragmented with a lot of different characteristics in the different countries, we also have very local and regional manufacturing excellence. That means that, for example, Portugal is super well known for high quality fashion textile, for porcelain stoneware, while, for example, German efficiency is obviously very good in everything that's formulated, everything that's might be a supplement, might be a food and beverage product. And so we have all these hubs, let's call them like that, where you have product excellence built by generations of manufacturing experience. We have strong sustainability standards. So many of you might have heard that recently the CSDD was passed. It's basically the European Supply Chain Act. I have a very strong opinion on that because now it's all in the media. It only affects the big players, but I don't think that's fully true because it affects the big players directly. Big players meaning corporations, I think with more than 500 or 1,000 employees, something like that. But in the end, it affects the whole supply chain. So also the smaller manufacturers have to stick to those regulations if they want to supply the big players. So this will have an overall impact on sustainability and how products are manufactured in Europe. We have a strong legal system, IP protection. I do think you're always on a very safe side when working with European suppliers. And once you convince them, they are quite reliable. We have to say that as well. But there are also challenges, and that's where I'm now shifting a little bit the presentation, is that obviously all that positive sides of sourcing from Europe come with costs, literally actually, because due to those high quality standards, a lot of regulations, there is also in many countries a minimum wage, the production costs are just higher. The stringent regulations also cause some bureaucratic headaches, you may call them like that, if you want to especially tap into regulated products where certifications are needed, etc. You do have limited production capacity. I think that's a big downside of sourcing from Europe, and also a lack of product diversity. So we have a lot of products in the FMCG, CPG space that you can manufacture in Europe without any problem. But when it comes to a bit more complex electronics, etc., to be honest, especially when you're operating on low MOQs, it's almost unrealistic to source an electronic gadget or something in Europe. And obviously we're dealing, and that's where we are coming from, with kind of a old school business mindset, meaning a lot of the business is happening on physical trade shows. You have high MOQs that you have to fulfill. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about sourcing in or from Europe. So what are the mistakes to avoid? I just try to break them down in a straightforward way. So first and foremost, and I'm sorry to say that, but do not think that suppliers waited for you. I said it already in the beginning, Europe has limited production capabilities. So to be honest, no one really waited for especially smaller brands. So that's also why it's super important by doing this instead. Your supplier is like your investor. If you reach out to a supplier, you have to pitch yourself. You have to pitch that working with you is a growth opportunity for the manufacturer and for the supplier. Many brands don't understand that, especially coming from sourcing from China, where you get instantly a response from 10 different factories. In Europe, you really have to pitch yourself that investing, that it's actually really an investment from the manufacturer in working with you. Sorry to state the obvious, but I saw it already a few times. if you send requests to multiple suppliers at once, do not CC those suppliers. You're like, that's how the fastest way to get burned and never receive a response when you CC multiple suppliers in one email. And be very, I would say, considerate and in terms of expectation management. It's completely normal if you send out requests via email that you only get a 10 to 25% response rate. That brings me to mistake number 2, sending imprecise requests. So what you have to really be aware is, be crystal clear what you are looking for. Rather spend a few more minutes in writing your request when approaching a supplier than just sending a one-liner. State also where you can make compromises. So obviously you should have, when you send a request, a certain checklist. I will share a checklist with you later, where you have all the, I would say, basics of your request should be included, meaning minimum order quantities, do you have a target price, what's your preferred lead time, how many times a year will you order, etc. But also state where you're able to have compromises. Meaning, if you don't know your MOQ, what your real MOQ is, or if the MOQ is dependent on the unit price, state that. Say, hey, we are open to this and that. Best case, also state what's your overall budget. That really helps the suppliers to understand what they can do for you and makes it way more higher, or has a way more higher chance that they would then also react to your request. Obviously, treat a request really like a tender. Even if you're a small brand, treat it like you would procure for a big player. Create a tender document where it's not only an email request, but I share also a template with you later, where you really have all the information in one document. Do not, another mistake, rely solely on cost considerations. I said before, sourcing from Europe is, on a unit price basis, probably more expensive. But Nick mentioned it also, it has a lot of hidden costs or opportunity costs that are not actually hitting, meaning if you're, especially if sourcing in Europe from European suppliers, faster lead times in terms of supply chains are way closer to where you operate. You have this quality, the whole quality topic. Don't start putting a price or let's say like that, don't start saving on quality. So this also should all be considered when purely comparing quotes from manufacturers from China versus Europe, for example. A good tip to push the unit costs a bit down is to negotiate framework contracts where you commit to the supplier that within a year you are purchasing a certain amount of products. You don't have to purchase them upfront, but you tell them, okay, I'm doing, I don't know, 20,000 units of a supplement filled in jars, but I'm ordering them throughout on a quarterly basis. So that gives the supplier the possibility to calculate, purchase their ingredients, for example, and give you a lower unit price, while you have the certainty that you also have the production set up for you. And also consider long-term value creation, meaning it's not only about price, it's about, can this manufacturer grow with me? Can I be sure that the supply chains are resilient? Can this manufacturer also help me innovate, maybe also based on this regulatory framework that we have? So these are all things that you should still consider. And also what we see all the time is ignore the lead times and the contingency planning. So what I mean with that is, as I said before, lead times might be shorter once the supply chain is set up, but it takes longer to convince a supplier, first of all, to respond to your first request, to get the sampling done, to understand how much buffer do you have to plan in when reordering from the supplier. Really, it's the first request and the first sample is just really a fraction of the overall time spent that you have to consider when working with European suppliers. And also understand the reorder and PO processes. What channels do they use to receive reorders? Is it email? Do they have a system in place, etc.? So really be aware of that. And if possible, and especially when you have framework contracts, book already production slots up front, especially before peak seasons, when a big retailer is in the line or in the pipeline of the supplier, and you're coming maybe with a rather small project. You have to be you can be quite certain that you are not the ones who are prioritized in short notice. And I think mistake number 5 is, do not look for a jack of all trades. So, and that really comes back and why I would not really say we are Alibaba for Europe, because it's a bit misleading, because people think they can do everything in Europe. They can have the same MOQs to the same price points with the same customization level. So really be aware of, there is probably always a certain compromise that you have to deal with when sourcing from Europe. But when you are cracking it, it's very rewarding, I think, when working with European suppliers. Unit prices, we see it all the time. People come to us on the platform and have very, very unrealistic expectations of their target manufacturing prices. And sometimes I just have to reply to them and say, hey, do the back of the envelope math. Yeah. So if you want to manufacture a handmade eyewear product, sunglasses, for example, manufactured in Italy, and meaning handmade means there is a person dealing with basically putting the frames together. We have we have higher salary costs, wage costs. So it is just sometimes not possible to produce and at a certain price point. So always think about doing the back of the envelope math when thinking especially about prices, and obviously set up clear communication flows with suppliers. Be good in following up, be very respectful, again, coming back to what I mentioned before, treating them like your investors. As I don't want to just preach, but also want to practice what I preach, that's for everyone who's listening today, a small giveaway. We have, before we started Wanda, we have done a lot of sourcing projects, like an agency actually. And we have 2 supplier RFP templates where we actually, it's like a checklist, put together all the different information that the suppliers need, where you get actually through the templates guided how to write a good RFP or a good request. And if you send me an email to oliver@wanda.com, I'm sending you 2 templates, one based on Google Slides, and the other one is Canva based. And yeah, if you have any questions, happy to hear them and hopefully answering them.
Thank you, Oli. Just thought one thing for people that don't know. Europe has the highest average order value. So for some type of products, I mean, it makes sense to source from Europe, because I actually had a webinar some time ago with another part, like sourcing wizard like you guys, and he was telling me that for some products you can only source them from Europe, but I forgot for what exactly it was. I think it was for like motor gloves or like some. I forgot the exact category, but some stuff, the best ones are in Europe. So, and as a matter of fact, now I was sourcing from Europe. I never had issues, by the way. And the other good thing about that is just from my experiences, because even though it was like 14 years ago when we started, we were able to actually sell products which didn't exist. We did a test campaign. We did a demo page. We sell 100 units and we sell our clients, sorry guys, now we're out of order. We're going to deliver the goods, like the products, in 3 weeks. And what we do, my designer builds the product. We send the label and everything to our manufacturer in the UK, and we have the products in 2 weeks. And we ship the products in like 3 weeks, which is crazy, but you cannot do it in China. Only once I sourced from China and waited 3 months. Of course, it's much cheaper, but it depends. I mean, so this is just my experience. So right now, like I said, no, the sun is, we're almost sunset here, in Europe in half an hour, but we're going to the States, and you guys probably wouldn't believe it, but there is a platform which can help you source premium products from the States and sell across the USA. So that's why we have Adam here today. He's the co-founder of Blanca, but he's gonna tell you more about what they do and what you guys probably don't know yet. So thanks, Adam, and tell us more about you and what is your tip today.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Jim and Ollie, some great tips and tricks in there. It's pretty cool. Gets my brain running on that side of things. So yeah, I'll just start off here presenting my my screen here. I'm going to be talking about the fact that you can source great products anywhere, but great products aren't enough by themselves. So 1 second here. Okay. So sourcing great products is one thing, right? But making sure that you actually can sell those products is the second part of everything. So really, that's what we try to do with Blanca, is help make everything easy. So we give you more time to sell those products. Just a little bit more about me. I'm based in Vancouver. That's where Blanca is based as well. I come from the creative and marketing space with a long tenure in it, and I love anything that's board sport related. So catch me on the mountain or in the surf. I already told you a little bit about Blanca beforehand, but Blanca is a tech platform that enables anyone to create a branded product line. And the way that we do it is that we source from really high quality vetted suppliers across North America. We've got almost 400 SKUs on the platform. You simply create an account, upload a logo. We generate all the product shots immediately. One click connects up to your online store. You sell that product. It flows right through to us. We brand that product with really, really incredible high quality printing, not stickers or labels. And then we package it and ship it to the end customer. So we handle all the logistics, all the sourcing, all the quality control, everything along those lines. And we do all of that without any product order minimums, so that the risk to start and scale a product line is very, very low. So if you were to do this traditionally, you'd have to find the suppliers, order the inventory, most likely, if you're getting started, to your living room, handle all the procurement and packaging and shipping and all of the things around that, and then have a big upfront cost associated with that, as well as shipping it out to your end customer and dealing with all of that side of the business. So Blanca, we really streamline that whole process. So why aren't great products enough at the end of the day? So first of all, it boils down to where you source your products from. Looking at what Ollie was saying around Europe, really high quality products. There's some definite sourcing on our horizon through Europe and some other high quality suppliers. But number one thing that I would say is source products that A, you believe in, and B, from places that you trust. Now, what does that mean? When you look at the supply chain of where you're getting things, understanding that you can trust and work with your supplier because there's this level of transparency and honesty that's being operated. You have this great relationship with them. And why would you trust a supplier? You go through all the requirements that they need, right? So they handle all the rigorous testing, all the certifications, all the compliance, specifically with a formulation product like makeup or cosmetics or skincare or anything like that. There's a lot of testing that needs to go through there. So if the supplier is handling all of that, you earn that trust, you build that trust with them, and then therefore you don't have to worry about it, and you can pass that level of trust and compliance onto your customers. At Blanca, like I mentioned, we focus on North American source products, really, really high quality. We vet everything. Our entire team tests products. We share them. We do all sorts of things on that side. And what does that do for us? Most of our customers are based in the US. It keeps our supply chain and lead time short, just like what Ollie was talking about with Europe and keeping European, like different supply chains, shorter lead times there. That also means for us, faster reordering, faster sourcing. And there's just a level of transparency and standard of operating and production that operates in the United States and Canada that far exceeds some that we've seen in the past with some different factories in certain other countries. From a trusted supplier, you know that generally the product categories that they're already producing, they're doing that because there's a demand in the market. So you can rely on the fact that there's some sell-through capability of this product that you're going to be sourcing from these suppliers, instead of creating a brand new product that you're inventing, the new narrative around it and creating a new demand for it. The next thing, really, at the end of the day, I cannot, iterate this or state this enough, but ultimately you have to believe in your product. So you need to test your product. You need to use your product. You need to share that product with your customer base, to truly have that trust and transparency in what you're going to be selling. You have to believe in what you're selling. So if you can get that and get buy-in from your network and your own self, and you believe in that product, that transparency in the way that you communicate and you market that product is going to be felt by your end customer, and really establish that product market fit to your audience and create some success. The last piece on actually sourcing the product itself is I recommend limiting the number of SKUs. If you are going out as a CPG brand and you're on a smaller scale looking to grow, limit the number of SKUs so you can create a beautiful story and narrative about it that I'll touch on shortly, to create a few hero products. And what that does is it reduces that element of doom scrolling through thousands of products and confusing your customer base with so many different offerings. But if you can narrow that down to just a few hero SKUs, it makes selling each one of those SKUs a lot easier rather than trying to sell it all at once. It's almost like the jack of all trades, master of none mentality. You really want to be specialists in the products that you're selling. The next real point here is really creating a narrative around your product line. At the end of the day, this is marketing 101, and it's really finding what your customers' pain points are, and ultimately your product will provide a solution for them. So if you can answer that time-tested tale of, I have this problem, this product is going to be a solution, you're already connecting with your customer. Ultimately, can you identify ways that your product can make your customers' lives easier, improve them, or even have them try something new? Ultimately, what that does is it begins to establish an emotional connection with your customer. So no matter how good your product is on the surface, you have to have that emotional buy-in for someone to actually go ahead and consider that purchase and understand what does it do for me as a customer? Can it help me? Is it worthwhile? And then layer in, do I trust where this came from? Do I trust this brand? And that goes back to where you sourced it and how transparent you can be around the type and why you sourced a product from where and things like that. So ultimately creating that emotional connection with your customer is key. The third point here is really putting your customer at the center of all those decisions. Customer obsession should be your number one job. Ultimately, being customer obsessed, you're going to establish really strong product market fit. You're going to listen to your customer, and you're going to understand any pivots you may need to take or any kind of potential new products you might want to get into. When you're listening to your customers and you're actioning the needs surrounding your product line, there's ways to gather that feedback, such as surveys, that help you establish what's next. A great way to vet a new product that you may be sourcing is by surveying your customer base, asking them for what they're missing or what they're looking for to add on to your existing product line. And this is a great way to kind of already establish that demand for another product that you can go and source from your existing supplier if they carry it, or another specialized supplier in that way. It's also really important when you're talking about your customers, talking to your customers, is to make sure your language is really clear, consistent, and super easily understood. And I can't stress that enough. Consistency through language, it's just number one. What's also really special is surprising and delighting. So little, I call them Easter eggs, but these little moments on a customer's journey to really surprise them and ultimately delight them, such as, a nice note that's inserted into the order, or a bonus, discount code, or different things like that. There's lots of stuff there. And then last but not least, this is kind of par for the course these days, but if using tech to really help make your life easier and automate things, if you're not using AI yet, you should be. Give it a try. There's definitely some stuff to help ease some of the heavy workload, such as using tools like ChatGPT, even just for like thought starters or ideas. If you're creating product descriptions, anything like that can really help with product. Anything to do with the actual like copywriting. Imagery is huge, of course. So the developments that have been in the AI image space have been absolutely incredible. Everything from DALI just releasing an editing function, which is unbelievable, to using Google's Gemini, and even tools like Canva, which are free. They have some beautiful AI generation tools as well. Ultimately, going back to kind of like making why you should limit your SKUs and things like that to hero SKUs, and really focusing on like a niche position. You really want to be unique in both your descriptions, your positioning, but also your imagery. So utilize some of these like tech tools to help do that, instead of just the standard on white background for like a product shot. So those are kind of my overall tips and tricks on helping bring a product to life, regardless of where you source it from. And if you're interested in signing up for Blanka, when you use the code sourcing10, that will give you 10% off your first sample order. So yeah, any questions, feel free to hit me up, and I'm looking forward to hearing what is next. Thanks.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay. So let's start with some questions. So the first one, I mean, for example, Adam, what is there like a unique product, like I asked, like Oli and Jim, which you should source in the USA, which regardless of price or anything, you cannot find anywhere else?
That's a tough one. I would say that the US, there isn't necessarily anything in our space directly that you can't find anywhere else, but there are certain qualities and levels of certification and compliance that are really, really closely adhered to in the US and Canada. The FDA and Health Canada have incredibly high standards. So that is something that rolling into it, whatever you're sourcing through any of those kind of custom formulated products that are, call them, more of a gray area when you're sourcing sometimes from China. It's something that is harder to track down the true validity of that testing and shelf stableness and different things like that. So that's kind of what I would say to that.
Okay, and another question now. Hey, sourcing wizards, give us some negotiation tips. When we're actually bargaining with the suppliers for a price. No, from each one of give us a tip. I know what I used to do, but tell me what you guys are recommending.
I could start. I'm repeating myself, but I think it's really about the growth story. Yeah, that you hook them in. Hey, maybe we are now or we're having a bit of lower MOQs now, bit of better price, but decent, and it must be convincing. Obviously, it should not be like crazy unrealistic, but really give the supplier the clear story and the clear path to understand that they will grow with you. And I think convincing them that they are part of something big, which is realistic, achievable, my opinion is a really, really strong way of negotiating good terms.
Okay, good tip.
Yeah, and I guess my strategy, the one we most commonly use, is we try to get multiple quotes from multiple suppliers. And so, I mean, once you start to get that, you start to get an average cost. So what I call the true price. So I mean, for us, I think the main thing is figure out what the true price of a product is. And I mean, the more you talk to people, the more you actually understand, you get closer to that true price. I mean, and so when you have suppliers, there's going to be, let's say you get 5 quotes for a product. There's going to be one supplier that you think is going to be higher in quality, but maybe higher in price. Like, also not be so focused on price. That's my second advice. Because there are other aspects of a product that you do need to negotiate. You need to negotiate quality. You need to negotiate lead times. You need to negotiate materials. And so, I mean, just be really focused on getting the product you want, and be competitive on price. So once you know the true price, you actually know what product you're going to get. And then kind of from there, use that as a base to kind of figure out what the quality you want to get. Because once you get multiple quotes, you're going to see a range of quality. Everything from poor quality, higher end, and figure out what the quality to price ratio that you want and really kind of hammer it down, focus on a supplier and really kind of go in on them. Another thing too with negotiation is be polite. Like so many people just are aggressive with it, and that turns off suppliers. Ollie mentioned a lot about like you actually kind of do need to woo suppliers, like it's especially outside of China. Um, Suppliers can be selective. They want to work with people they want to work with. They want to work with clients that will make them obviously make them money. This is business at the end of the day, but clients that are easy or nice to work with. And anytime, I mean, just from my experience, when we work with clients, we have nice clients. I go above and beyond for them, and it's the same with suppliers. If you're nice to them, they like working with you. They will be better. So just understand it is a relationship. It is kind of dating. So you got to actually woo them. You got to make sure they like you, you like them, and ultimately just find a supplier that's a good fit at the end of the day.
Okay, so don't be an asshole. So you're sourcing.
Yeah, don't be an asshole. Is my
Yeah, it's gonna fire you.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's been times
That's in general a good tip.
yeah, I've seen established businesses be just straight up rude to suppliers, and the suppliers just literally go no contact with them. And I just say, yeah, what did you expect? And it sucks. And they come to us and they're like, hey, fix this relationship. I'm like, it's it's not good. And then I don't want to work with them too. It's happened, but yeah, I mean, just honestly, yeah, just be a good person and just understand that it's a business too, and they have needs. But ultimately, it's your business, and you need to find a supplier that works for you too.
Adam, any tips from you?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with some of the pieces of it. Both Ollie and Jim, established, and we experienced this as well when we started Blanca. We went out there as an unknown, essentially, to these suppliers. So we had to go and, woo them, create these relationships, ultimately, showing that like projection of where you're going to be and aligning on that side. Really clear, as Ollie had in his presentation, really clear asks, and like really defined kind of areas that you are willing to compromise on or not.
Yeah.
But I would say one thing, if possible, try and find a backup supplier, because
100%.
quite often you get into a position where your supplier is backed up and their lead times all of a sudden aren't going to work for you, and you are selling through something and you need to like revamp, you need to reorder, you need to get that back in. So trying where possible to find another backup supplier is really, really important. And then also, we haven't talked about it at all, but get like samples from everywhere you can, to even if you don't have that backup supplier yet, you have something very comparable, you can start leaning on and creating that relationship as well.
Okay, one question for you guys. It's good that you mentioned the sample. So let's say I would like to set up a backup in China, Vietnam, Europe, and the USA. I know when I have the supplier guarantee that if I put an order, they're gonna deliver that. Is there such thing, for example, or sometimes you're not gonna get a reply even if somebody did the sample and you're just let's say even if you build this like a backup supplier niche like continent, you don't have a guarantee that whenever you need them, they're gonna deliver, right?
Yeah,
correct.
Okay, so unless you're steadily ordering stuff from them and you're like important client, so does it make sense in this case if you're a big company which sources a lot to keep on ordering from multiple suppliers, so you make sure that you can rely on those guys? I used to be selling like dedicated service like 20 years ago, my first like sales job. So we used to have something which we called load balancing. You put your server on several like dedicated service, so it never goes down. So is there a load like supplier balancing, so you never actually are left out without a supplier, no matter what happens?
Yeah, and a lot of big client or bigger companies can do that. It's kind of hard to do at small scale. It's good to have the contacts and like get multiple quotes initially, just so you have those contacts on the back end. But if you're a larger supplier, I do know, and we do work with a few that would buy like 75% of their product from China, then 25% from Vietnam, and sometimes they actually pay more from Vietnam or elsewhere, and they specifically do that so that they have those established supplier relationships, those established supply chains in place, so that they can shift rapidly. So if something were to happen, they can all of a sudden do 75 or 100% from Vietnam, and do that literally within weeks or days or whatever. Versus when you start a new supply chain from scratch, even if you have quotes and contacts, it can take months and months to get established. So if something were to happen in China, it'll take you potentially a 3-month gap in supply. So it's definitely a strategy you can use, but it's more suitable for larger players because you got to meet the MOQs in both Vietnam and China to get those. And if you're a smaller brand that's maybe ordering 10,000 units a month of whatever, it might not be suitable. But if you're pushing 50, 100,000 units a month or a year or whatever, you start to get into those volumes where it does make more sense. And yeah.
Okay, guys. And one last question before we're almost out of time. Is there something like a hidden fee or something most sellers or like most companies don't know about sourcing? Because everybody's talking about the price on which you source, like minimum order quantity. Is there anything that a lot of businesses don't think of when they're actually sourcing? Because there is cost about bringing those goods to wherever you're going to sell them. So is there anything hidden or anything that people must know on top of the cost of sourcing the product?
Yes, I think some brands don't know that just because the supplier is certified for certain products, that they are automatically able to use the same claim as well. So the brands also have to get certified. It's quite straightforward. If the supplier and the products of the suppliers are certified for certain certifications, then you will also get it. But some don't know that. Some think, okay, it's manufactured by a certified supplier, so I just put the eco, the bio labels, etc. on it. But you have to be certified yourself to use those kind of certifications.
Yeah, I would probably say so I would probably say just in general, shipping and duties and taxes and whatnot, a lot of people underestimate those costs. One of the big things for us is we really emphasize landed costs, what we call the landed costs. So it's the cost to actually get your product from the factory, and B, get it actually shipped to your final destination. So let's just say it's FBA warehouse in Orange Beach, California, or wherever, Long Beach. So, you got to figure out that there's a HTS code associated with your product. And that HTS code, you can actually use free tools. Like United States has HTSlookup.com, or just Google HTS lookup code for your respective country that you're importing into, not or it's imported to. And then you can actually find the tax and tariff rates for that product. And that's based on invoice cost and then also shipping cost. People will find like products for, since like I remember a client found a product. It was a larger product, like, it's like $20 and it retails for $100, but he didn't realize the volume of it is going to be expensive to ship. So he was like super excited he found it. I was like trying to explain to him, it's going to cost a lot more. It's going to cost probably 2 or 3. Once we looked up shipping costs, it's like $60 to ship a $20 product, And so all of a sudden this product retails for $100. There's not really any savings there. And that was just shipping costs without any other fees. So, you just got to keep the shipping costs in mind as a cost. And when you ship from Asia, it is longer distance. One of the benefits from USA and Europe that y'all talked about is that it is cheaper and easier to ship to. But when you're Asia based, it is literally halfway around the world. So you do got to keep that in mind.
Okay, guys. So I think we're out of time. So thank you everybody for joining, especially to my guests, Ole, Adam, Jim, and you guys know if you would like to find the sourcing supplier or a partner, because we're actually looking for a partner, not just a sourcing manufacturer. Get in touch with Ole for Europe, with Jim for Vietnam and China, and Adam for the USA. I've shared their contacts so you can actually connect with them. I strongly recommend to follow them and to check them out, because they don't buy it, they can only help out, guys. And before we go, I'm Nick Penny, the co-founder of Scale, Extreme Power Brands, Ecom Hot Sauce, and some other stuff. I'm gonna play you our 1 minute of Scale, because that's why we have the webinar, and I wish you to enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your day for the guys in the States. So thanks again, Adam, Ole, Jim. Adios, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, thanks. A pleasure.
Bye.
Thanks, Nick.
Meet Scale, the tool that streamlines proactive referrals and facilitates meaningful introductions. With Scale, you can easily exchange intros to expand your network and boost your business growth. Step 1. Sign up for free. You can conveniently sign up for Scale.com using your Gmail account. Step 2. Create your page. To create your Scale page, choose a unique handle, like this, https://app.scale.com, Nick Pehnev. Add your name, company, position, and a brief introduction. Step 3. Upload your contacts. You can easily upload your contacts, including partners, clients, or missed opportunities, and share their names, companies, positions, and also their LinkedIn profiles. Step 4. Request introductions. With at least 10 contacts, you're ready for scale matchmaking, connecting you with users who share your ideal customer profile, ICP, for introduction swaps and referrals. Sign up today and try Scale for free.